A grey dawn over France, and the smell of death already rising from the mud. 30,000 knights, proud, armored, invincible, facing 9,000 starving men with nothing but wood and string. Hours later, the nobles lay broken, drowned in the same mud they mocked. That day, arrogance met discipline, and discipline won. Crécy wasn't just a battle, it was the funeral of chivalry, and the birth of modern war. August 26th, 1346. A grey dawn rises over the fields of northern France. Mud, mist, and the scent of death already hang in the air. On one side, 9,000 exhausted Englishmen. On the other, 30,000 of Europe's proudest knights, gleaming like gods in steel. The French are confident, arrogant even, nobles arguing over who will have the honor of killing the English king. 4 hours later, 1,500 nobles will lie dead, trampled in the mud, their glory devoured by crows. The age of the armored knight, 5 centuries of dominance, would end in a single afternoon. Edward III of England had landed in Normandy with 15,000 men, claiming the French throne by blood and proving it by fire. His campaign, a chevauchée, a march of fire and vengeance. Villages burned, crops turned to ash, fear spreading faster than any army. Now, outside the village of Crécy, the English are trapped, exhausted, hungry, and cornered. But Edward has one weapon the French laugh at: 5,000 longbowmen, peasants with sticks and string. The French scoff. How could mud-caked farmers stand against knights in shining armor? But Edward knew something the French did not. The longbow was about to rewrite history. The English took the high ground, a muddy slope that would soon become a graveyard of nobles. Edward's men dug ditches, hammered stakes, and turned the earth itself into a weapon. Then came the order that shattered tradition. The English knights dismounted to fight on foot. Across the field, the French camp boiled with pride. Nobles feasting, boasting, and swearing oaths of glory. They didn't see discipline. They saw an insult. Peasants and nobles standing together as equals. Night fell. The English sharpened their arrows, rubbed wax on bowstrings, and waited in silence. At dawn, the French army appeared. 30,000 men glittering like a sea of steel. Philip VI of France commanded the largest host in Christendom. Kings, dukes, and princes all hungry for English blood. But behind that splendor was chaos. Pride, louder than orders, vanity stronger than strategy. Philip ordered them to rest, but knights don't rest. They charge. Thunder rolled, rain fell, a storm that would decide the fate of thousands. The English unstrung their bows and tucked the strings dry beneath their helmets. The Genoese crossbowmen didn't. Their strings stretched and sagged, dead before the battle even began. When the rain stopped, the field was a swamp of mud and arrogance. Trumpets sounded. 5,000 Genoese advanced, unaware they were walking into hell. Their bolts flew first, short, weak, and falling harmlessly in the mud. Then came the sound, a single, endless roar. 5,000 longbows releasing at once. The sky turned black with feathers. Death fell like rain. The Genoese broke and ran, and the French knights, enraged by their fear, charged into their own men. The battlefield dissolved into chaos, knights hacking down their own allies just to reach the front. What began as strategy turned into slaughter, pride driving swords deeper than any enemy could. The English archers simply watched, calm, patient, waiting for their moment to end an era. Then, another command. 5,000 longbows sang again, like thunder tearing open the sky. Each arrow found flesh, armor, or horse. It didn't matter. Everything that moved was dying. Horses screamed, reared, fell, crushing their masters. The front line buckled and collapsed into the mud. Behind them, more knights charged, straight into the corpses of their brothers. Momentum died in the mud. Honor drowned in it. The English line never moved, not an inch. Their arrows simply kept falling. Cold, mechanical, merciless. The French had never faced an army that didn't fear them. For centuries, cavalry charges had ruled Europe. Crécy ended that with a whisper of bowstrings. Every knight who fell became a wall of armor for the next to die upon. The field turned into a graveyard before the sun even set. English archers ran out of arrows, so they pulled them from the dead and fired again. The French waves came 16 times, 16 noble suicides. By the 10th charge, knights were climbing over mountains of corpses to reach their death. At last, a blind king asked to be led into battle. "Tie my horse to yours," he said, "so I may strike one blow before I die." The blind king charged, sword raised toward a sky he could no longer see. He swung blindly, shouting his battle cry, and vanished beneath the storm of arrows. When they found him, his sword still lay in his hand, his eyes still open. Even Edward's son, the Black Prince, bowed his head at the sight. He would later take the blind king's emblem, 3 ostrich feathers, as his own. By sunset, 16 waves of French nobility lay shattered. Pride had drowned in mud. The sacred battle banner of France, the oriflamme, lay abandoned in the blood-soaked earth. Philip VI himself was dragged from the field, his jaw pierced by an arrow. The English, too stunned to celebrate, stood guard all night, killing any French knight who moved. When dawn rose, the horror revealed itself, a sea of armor and blood stretching beyond sight. 1,500 nobles dead, 11 princes, thousands of knights. The flower of France gone in a day. The English had lost 40 men, not 400, 40. 40 Englishmen stood over 1,500 nobles. A ratio so unthinkable that chroniclers blamed God himself. The French refused to believe it. How could peasants defeat princes? How could bows humble bloodlines? For centuries, nobility had meant divine superiority, God's chosen to rule and to kill. Crécy ended that illusion with a whisper and a bowstring. The French army lay in ruins, nobles, dukes, and counts indistinguishable beneath the mud. Crows feasted so well on royal flesh that witnesses said they could no longer fly. It was more than victory. It was transformation. A world order collapsing into the mud. The English didn't just win a battle. They buried the idea that courage could defy mathematics. Every noble corpse was a question. What was divine about dying in the mud? Archers, once ignored as rabble, had become the hand of destiny. The longbow, 6 feet of yew wood, had just shattered 5 centuries of chivalry. The nobles who once laughed at peasants were now buried beside them, equal in decay. Looters came at dawn, peasants stripping armor worth kingdoms from the fallen. The wealth of the dead fed the living. Commoners walked away richer than the lords they buried. Armor that couldn't save its masters was melted down and sold by those who never wore it. Crécy didn't just kill men, it killed an entire belief system. The code of chivalry, once sacred, drowned that day in blood and rain. The French nobility, decapitated in a single battle, left their kingdom leaderless and humiliated. In Paris, bells tolled not for victory, but for the death of France's pride. Entire families vanished overnight, fathers, sons, and heirs lying nameless in foreign mud. The shock rippled through Europe. If knights could die like this, what else was a lie? The English marched on, weary but unbroken, their path to Calais now wide open. They left behind a valley of bones, later called the Field of the Cloth of Gold. For years, farmers plowing that land would turn up skulls crowned with rusted steel. Crécy was a funeral for the old world, and the birth cry of modern war. Discipline, not bloodline, had won the day. Preparation, not glory. France, broken but unyielding, would try again, and die again at Poitiers. But no matter how many times they charged, the lesson of Crécy could not be undone. Power had shifted forever, from noble to commoner, from sword to string, from arrogance to aim. And so, in that muddy field of Crécy, the age of knights ended, and the age of humanity began. Crécy was not just a battle. It was a mirror. And in that mirror, Europe saw the death of its own delusions. For 500 years, knights had ruled the world through muscle, money, and myth. Crécy proved that fate bows to no title, only to skill, discipline, and the cold geometry of war. It was the moment when courage met calculation, and calculation won. The bow had beaten the sword, the footman had beaten the knight, and the peasant had beaten the prince. Europe would never fight the same way again, nor believe the same lies about honor. The French rebuilt, reorganized, and learned the hard truth. Bravery without discipline is suicide. The English learned, too, that victory bought with blood still demands its due. Those who survived Crécy spoke little, as if words could not describe what the sky looked like when it rained arrows. They had seen courage break like glass, and pride rot faster than flesh. When historians look back, they call it a victory. But for those who stood there, it felt like the world had ended. The 100 Years' War had only just begun. And already, France had lost its soul. King Philip's humiliation echoed through every castle hall. Every noble feared his armor had turned to paper. England, too, began to change. Peasants who'd once bowed now walked with the confidence of killers. For the first time in history, common men had rewritten the language of power. It wasn't nobles who shaped the new Europe. It was bowmen, blacksmiths, and farmers with scars. The old world of armor and oaths was rusting away, one battle at a time. Crecy was the crack in the armor of history, a wound through which the modern age began to bleed. It showed that fear and fury are nothing before discipline and distance. It was proof that the future belonged not to those who charged blindly, but to those who aimed carefully. The mud at Crecy swallowed more than men. It swallowed the myth of invincibility. The knight, once Europe's god of war, had become mortal again. Every age ends with denial. Crecy was denial's last stand. But something was born in that destruction. The idea that intelligence could conquer strength. War had evolved, and so had humanity. The battlefield of Crecy became a classroom where Europe learned the price of arrogance. Its lesson would echo from Agincourt to Waterloo, from musket lines to mechanized war. Every modern army carries a fragment of Crecy's truth in its bones. That preparation beats passion. That training beats chaos. That pride always falls before patience. Crecy became the grave of chivalry and the cradle of strategy. Where noble armor failed, human intellect rose. Even centuries later, generals would whisper the same truth. Never underestimate discipline. Crecy was more than England's triumph. It was humanity's revelation. It showed that courage without reason is vanity, and that reason without courage is cowardice. Between those two, in the balance of mind and heart, every great victory is born. In the mud of Crecy, that balance was found, and it changed everything. 5,000 peasants with bent sticks had rewritten the laws of power, and history would never again belong only to kings. Today, few remember Crecy. But every bullet, every strategy, every soldier's calm carries its echo. Because on August 26, 1346, in a muddy field called Crecy, the medieval world died, and the modern one was born.